This meeting of the Tyler ISD's Board of Trustees was previously called to order. The presence of a quorum has been established and the meeting has been duly called. And the notice of the meeting has been posted in the time and manner required. Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. We are reconvening from executive session with no action to follow. Of course, we'll do the prayer and the pledge, and I'll handle that tonight. So if you'd please stand. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather here this evening to handle the business of the district on the heels of Father's Day weekend, we are reminded of just how important daddies are in our lives, how vital they are in raising a strong and healthy child, and how necessary their role is in even running a successful school system. We know that an engaged father can exponentially improve the likelihood of success for a young person. However, we also know that it's becoming more and more common for fathers in our society to be less present, making it harder for their children to reach their full potential. So God, I just pray with every fiber in my being that as a community we will lift up our fathers in prayer. We'll support them and encourage them to be present, to be engaging, to be caring, to be loving, and to be purposeful in their relationships with their children. I pray that we'll continue to search for ways to get our daddies involved in their kids' lives. And I pray that we'll encourage them to look to you for guidance. God, I just pray for our staff and our students and our faculty that they're having a good summer. I just pray a hedge of protection over them, that you'll return them safely to us. And I pray this in my Savior's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. And I do want to say happy belated Father's Day to all the dads up here and all the dads out there. I know that all of you are good dads, and I appreciate all you do for your kids in the district. And I want to welcome Miss Lindsay Harrison to the board. Congratulations, and we look forward to working with you. So, okay, now it's time, actually, let's see here. Consider action items. We didn't have any action coming out of executive session. So we have, Amplify M-Class end of the year summary, Dr. Crawford?
Yes, sir. As you know, the back end of this last school year, we finally wrapped it up, and we actually have opportunities to present data as it starts trickling back in to the board. And it's time to start getting back into that routine. For the last 18 months, we've been dealing with a lot of other things that are not student achievement centric, and we're happy to start getting back on board and presenting that to you guys at this time. At this time, Dr. Christy Hansen, Assistant Superintendent for Academic Supports, is coming up here, and Dr. James Curitan, Director, almost gave you a bump there, Director of Assessment and Accountability, will provide assistance in this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford and board. We appreciate it. We're just going to go through some of the end of the year data with you, and we are going to talk about M-Class. We're going to talk about Renaissance just a little bit, and we're going to talk about STAR and end of course exams for you very quickly. So first, let's talk about M-Class. Just a reminder, this is our kindergarten through second grade test, and we give this to students 3 times per year. So I've come and talked to you about it before, so I just wanted to kind of run through this for you so you could see overall. We started at the beginning of the year with end of the year higher performance. Okay, so the performance there, I'm sorry, I've got to look at mine. I'm struggling with my eyes tonight. So you can see that we got a little bump there, so we feel really good about the kids and how they performed there. Let me go through this. So, our students were well below grade level, 49% of them all at the beginning of the year, and we want that number to go down, right? Well below, so we ended up with only 27% that were well below, and 58% that were at or above. So we feel really good, and then it goes through, as you can see, by grade level. At the beginning of the year, we had 28% that were at or above grade level, and we had 65% that were at or above towards the end of the year. And first grade, again, 30% that were at or above, 55% at or above by the end. And then second grade, 39 to 56, which we were glad to see that because, as you remember, we've been struggling with second grade just a little bit. So, so that's good to see that we got those bumps. And then we broke that down by demographics for you so that you could see those numbers as well. I'll give you just a minute to look through those. And then here we are again with the specific skills. And as you know, we feel really good about those, and we know we're looking at that reading comprehension. That's not that unusual for us to see kindergarten through second grade reading comprehension a little low. That usually picks up as we get into third, fourth, and fifth grade because we really focus on those phonemic awareness and phonics skills early on. So we expect those reading comprehension skills to improve with Renaissance, but certainly we're looking at what we can do to make sure that those reading comprehension skills, we'd like to see a bigger bump than that. So Dr. Carrington's going to talk to you a little bit about the STAR scores and accountability or the non-accountability and look at that data as well.
Good evening, board. We just want to touch base briefly on our STAR scores that we have received this year and kind of where we stand with those scores. We did start to receive some state scores. It says July up there is when we would start receiving them, but we actually received them a little bit earlier, at least about half the scores so far. This year, we're going to receive the state scores, but we're not going to actually be rated for accountability purposes. So we won't get a letter grade for the district. We won't get a letter grade for the campus, just due to COVID and kind of the intermittent STAR testing among districts. So we will receive our next ratings next year. So it'll be August next year when we get our next official ratings. Before we jump straight into STAR data, I just want to take a second and review some of the Renaissance data and kind of the comparison data that we've been getting this year, just to show you where we stand on that before we jump into the STAR data. So this is the STAR Renaissance reading data that we received this year. Just as a reminder, it's used to assess reading in kindergarten through 8th grade. We use it for math as well, and I'll show you the math results in a minute. But basically what you're looking at is just how we compared among other districts in both performance and growth in each grade. And so if you look down those two columns, the second and third column in that chart, you'll see that we were in the first, second, or third highest district when you look at us compared to the other districts. And what that's telling us is that the growth was there, the performance was there in the majority of cases when you look at us relative to other districts. So I just want to put that into your mind to be aware of as we kind of work through some of this data.
Those are Texas districts.
Correct. These are other Texas districts that are similar in terms of size, demographics. So we're not up there compared to a Waco or a Spring Hill per se. It's just the other districts that are comparable to us.
Actually, could be a Waco.
Could be a Waco, absolutely.
Yeah. It's not going to be Spring Hill.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
So here's same data for math. And so you'll kind of see the same results again. Our math results look pretty good. We were the top district, in the majority of grades for performance and for growth. So now what I want to do is just kind of jump and look at our data, our STAR data in cohort form. So this is going to be students that we had 2 years of data, but it's going to cross a 3-year span, right? So we didn't take STAR 2019-20. So we're taking the students that we had in 18-19 and comparing those to their results in 2021. And so it's going to be a little bit, there's going to be times that it looks a little weird, but just realize it's a 3-year kind of gap, but it's the same group of students. So if you just take that first row, in 2018-19, those were our 3rd graders. This year, they're 5th graders. And so it just shows you how that same group of students performed now as a fifth grader relative to a third grader. Go ahead.
So we're going to show you at the end how many students from each campus that we had that were virtual learners, because we think that's data that's relative. I also want you to remember that this is the first year that the students took the test online. So it was not a paper pencil test, it was a brand new format, and there were some challenges with that. So no excuses, I just wanted you to have all the data going in as you're looking at it. So we had the gap, we had some kids that were virtual, and then we also had a brand new testing format. So I just wanted you to have that.
And there was, before you pass that microphone over, we had a discussion about some of the, a lot of this stuff right now, we're just trying to hypothesize. But we do know that there is a pretty big jump as far as I don't want to say the difficulty of the test, but obviously the content of a test. Like say you take the 5th grade ELAR test and then you jump up to 7th grade reading, there's a significant increase in rigor, I guess, is what I'm trying to say more than anything. The
So those
test difficulty.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The tests in 5th grade and 8th grade, the ones
That's the one
where
I'm thinking of,
promotion is dependent on the kids passing the test, all those metrics tell us that is really a less rigorous test, because they're trying to give kids every opportunity to make sure that they are promoted to the next grade. So also in 6th grade, I just want to make sure that we understand that in 6th grade, over 80% of the content on that 6th grade math test is brand new content. Whereas in the 5th grade math test and the 5th grade reading test, that is spiraled content that they've been learning since kindergarten. In the 6th grade math test specifically, that is almost all brand new content. So it is a tough test. And then in 7th grade, they go in and they take essentially more new content. So that middle school 6th and 7th grade math test is a tough test.
Is it more algebraic?
It has a lot of algebraic reasoning on it.
Yeah. Okay.
So here's our math results, math star results. Same comparison, same 3-year gap. And so what I want to do real quick as we transition from the cohort data to goals, is just discuss how we performed relative to the goals we set prior to COVID kind of occurring and the gaps that we're seeing. So our first goal was with reading, that the percent of third graders that will pass STAR reading at grade level, which was approaches, would be 67.1% in spring 2021. So this spring, we fell just a little bit short of that at 65.1%. And the one goal you can see that we did hit there was our special ed students actually hit their goal and surpassed it pretty significantly. So if we look at progress measure 1.4, which was the percent of third grade students that will pass STAR reading at meets or masters, which is that higher level of performance, we wanted that to be at 35.7% this spring. It was at 34.7%, so it was 1% below. But there are some positive things to take. Our African American students hit their goal, our white students hit the goal, and their special ed students hit their goal. So certainly some positive things to take from that, even though we fell just 1% short on that goal. Go ahead.
So a quick reminder that the approaches, meets, and masters are all on grade level. As we move into meets and masters, it's the level of college readiness. So, you got to feel good about the fact that we hit that goal, that we hit the goals on college readiness more. So, yes, certainly approaches, that's on grade level. We've got, we weren't there, but we also feel really good about this piece as well.
If we take a look at our second goal, essentially now we're looking at math. So the percent of third grade students that would pass STAR math at grade level, which was approaches, we wanted to be at 72.7% in spring 2021. You can see we took a pretty good hit there at 62.5. Our special ed students, again, they hit their target, but across the board we we felt that we took a dip there.
And this is lining up with what's coming out across the state.
I was-
Math, we've been making a living on math. We've been really doing a good job with mathematics in Tyler, and it seems like this is where we really, I don't want to say got surprised, but obviously with virtual, and if you're not in school until November, leaving out the first 3 months of the school year, it's going to be very difficult to actually do the math. It's hard to do mathematics virtually.
The state and national data, by the way, research is telling us everybody's been very concerned about the reading gap. They're finding that actually the math gap is bigger, and it's because it's not as innate maybe for parents to teach math as it is for them to continue to read stories at home and do some of the natural reading things. But math is maybe not something that just naturally occurs in conversations. So all the national and state research is showing that the math gap is really the gap of concern. Yeah, that's certainly showing in our data as well. And one more time, I just want to say that the difference between a math test in a hard copy of math test and an online version of a math test, it's night and day. So how you do that test is very different for kids. They weren't, able to do all the things on paper that they're used to doing. So there's some work to be done for us as far as helping teach kids the test-taking strategies as well. Not teaching to the test, but teaching them test-taking strategies online. That's very different.
So 2 fairly new trustees up here, tell them why we did online testing.
Well, the state is going to online testing. There's no doubt. They've told us, they've been very clear that we're going to be moving to online testing. There were 2 big reasons that we did that this year. One, we were able to postpone the test till the very, very last part of the year. Otherwise, we would have taken it much earlier, and we felt like with as many virtual kids, we needed to give them as much opportunity in front of the teachers face-to-face since we didn't have them all year. And the second thing is because we weren't going to have accountability, we felt like this was the year to learn how to do it. And if we were going to have some struggles, we felt like this was the year to have those struggles. And we learned a lot. We learned a lot technology-wise. We learned a lot about how to teach kids the strategies and the difference between it. And the kids learned a lot. So we felt like this was a good year to do it.
Yeah, we also think that in future years, the one-to-one that y'all have approved for us on the devices is going to let us obviously have that in the students' hands a whole lot more as far as the instructional day-to-day operations go. So the more familiar they are, the more we're able to design test-taking strategies and skills.
Yes, sir.
Not teach to the test.
No.
That'll pay off for us in the end. So thank you for doing the one-to-one devices board.
We also had no way of knowing that we couldn't get those devices into the kids' hands till February or mid-February. There was just no way to know that. So when we had to declare whether we were going to do online or paper, which was in October of last year, September of 2020, we had already ordered them and they were supposed to be here by the 1st of October. So we had every anticipation that we would have all year to train the teachers and teach the kids the test-taking strategies. It just didn't work out that way.
Okay, just to finish up goal 2, if we look at the same measure in math, which was the percent of students at meets or masters, we wanted to be at 41.9%. We were at 31.8, which was about a 10% dip. The same we saw at the approaches level. Again, special ed students hit that goal, so that's great news moving forward. Okay, now what we want to do is just look at the STAR performance as a whole, and we'll talk about the scores as well as what Dr. Hansen mentioned a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to put these scores up here for a minute. You can see our prior year scores as well as this year, and then the difference from 18-19 to 2021 on that far right-hand side. This is all of our elementary scores.
And this is not cohort data.
Correct. So this is just straight performance data. We can go to secondary results. Or I'm sorry, middle school results. then we could look at our high school results. And so the next step, obviously, is to get the state's performance data and really see how we lined up with the state, just to get a more current perspective than comparing ourselves to 3 years ago prior to COVID really becoming an issue. So we'll line up that data as it comes out. I think the rest of the data comes out either tomorrow or it came out tonight, and then we'll get the last bit of data next Monday. So we'll have all the data actually before July. So we did want to, as Dr. Hansen said, we did want to show you the percent of students that passed the test that were on grade level at approaches from 3 years ago as well as from this year. I'm sorry, from 2 years ago as well as this year. And then how that compared to the percent of students that were at home for that first 6 weeks. And so these are all of our elementary campuses, and I'll let you take a look at it, just see how it compares.
So it's not straight across the board, but certainly we can't say it's causational, but we can certainly see correlative data that, the higher the percentage of the students who stayed at home for the most part, those were the campuses where we had more learning loss. So again, not every time, but if we look at the trend, there's certainly some correlation there.
And then lastly, here's the secondary campuses and how they lined up.
I will say RISE, those kiddos are used to doing their work online, period. I mean, that's what they do. So that's sort of an anomaly.
I mean, kudos to Rise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not trying to take anything away from RISE.
No,
That's
because,
yeah.
I mean, some really rough projections, if we were to do those, had obviously early college was going to be an A. I mean, it's hard to, now they get a lot of CCMR credit now with their associate stuff. They're
basically, as long as a student graduates with an associate's, they're
yeah,
CCMR.
so they're full, their
Correct.
batting average is really high.
Absolutely.
Because of that.
Yep.
But it looked like both high schools would have been Bs,
Mm-hmm.
and that Rise would have jumped
Yeah.
to a B.
That's what we think. Correct.
Yeah, but
Correct.
we're not gonna put that in front of y'all because our statistical reliability on
Yeah.
any of this stuff right now is just so shaky. But the secondary schools look like they had a good year, and then kudos to Hogg. They'd been struggling as well, but they had a good year this year. They really did. I know, look, anything with a negative number beside it, you just think, gosh, it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
But it is relative right now with the year that we just had, in my opinion. So,
Yep.
but Hogg had a great year, and so I want to, yeah. Yep.
Looks like Three Lakes had a tough year, given their low percentage of at-home.
They did. They did a great job of focusing on the safety protocols and doing things that we asked them to do. Whether or not there was the quality of instruction occurring in those classrooms are certainly the conversations that we're having right now.
Is there any peer group data that would let you reflect on that decision to bring kids back? Like how it
What-
paid off or
I
didn't?
think once we get the state data, Mr. Martinez will know more because we have some idea of what districts did as far as how long they were virtual and the hybrid models that they used, and we'll know more about how to compare that. I think they're going to give us state data, and there's some indication that they're going to publicize other districts as well, and we'll be able to probably go in and do some comparisons. Again, we'll have to find, we have some districts that we automatically compare ourselves to, so we know.
Well, I'm, of course, very concerned about the academic aspect of it, and I think that TISD's done a good job trying to maintain where we were going into COVID, and I think that definitely has been a negative factor in regards to everything. But even I would imagine when we get the state data that we have done relatively well compared to the others. Still, I have high expectations, though. Looking forward to the district getting that B+ or A, whatever, because I think we're capable of doing it, and I think that next year will be a year where we can actually hopefully see a big difference in that at all levels. But I think you've done a good job.
Campuses have really worked hard this year. The teachers, the principals, I can't say enough about the administrative staff. So.
Okay, any
Anything
other
else?
questions or comments? Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, James.
So now we have a T-test or walkthrough evaluation update.
Sherry Taylor, Executive Director of Human Resources, will provide the report for the T-test walkthrough evaluation update. We do this twice a year. I think the other one's in December. So kind of a,
January, February.
okay, mid-year check, somewhere around there. We get the data in December, present it to y'all in January, February. And at the end of the year, we present the T-test walkthrough data. Here we are.
Well, good evening, President Washman and Board of Trustees and Dr. Crawford. Thank you for allowing me to be here today as I will review our yearly T-test data. So T-test is a growth model fostering open and collaborative relationships and communication between students and teachers, and then teachers and their administrators. The goal of T-test is to go from teacher-centered action classroom to a student-centered action classroom. There are 3 components to T-test, and the goal-setting professional development is component 1. Your evaluation process is component 2, and that's broken up into 5 parts. You have your informal walkthroughs, then you have your pre-conference, your observation, post-conference, and your summative evaluation. The summative evaluation is an average of your walkthroughs and your observation. Student growth is the final component, and that provides feedback to teachers and their appraisers that captures where their teachers are in their practice in order to build on their strengths and then find areas of development. This slide shows our total number of walkthroughs and evaluation processes with all the campuses, elementary, middle school, and high school. Campus administrators are required to do at least 3 10 to 20 minute walkthroughs per teacher and at least 1 45 minutes announced observation per teacher. Walkthroughs and observations provide actionable and timely feedback, allowing teachers to make more efficient and contextually professional development choices that will lead to improvement in their instructional practice. This year, our campus administrators completed approximately 3,000 walkthroughs and approximately 2,000 evaluation processes, which led to a little over 960 summative evaluations. By monitoring walkthroughs and observations, our executive directors of school improvement and our chief innovation officer are able to focus on specific needs of each campus and teacher that allows for growth and successful student outcomes across the district. So this concludes the district's 2021 T-test update. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
100%
100%.
this year,
Yes,
all
sir.
teachers received.
All the teachers have their summative and observations and at least 3. We have some that have up to 6 or 10 walkthroughs, 2 or more observations. And that observation process, it's a lot because with the announced, you have to have the pre-conference, the observation, the post-conference. And an unannounced is just an observation and a post-conference. So they're meeting with the teachers a lot to help hone in on their craft and make better decisions with instructional practices on the campuses.
We provide this update to y'all. Sorry, Mr. Washman.
No, it's
About to
okay.
talk. For one, because of how new it was a few years ago, we used to live under the old PDOS system, the Professional Development Appraisal System. Is that right, Mr. Jones? Okay. So when they instituted this new process, there was a lot of discussion at this dais about everybody freaking out about T-TOS, T-TESS, T-TOS, T-TABS, teams, T-TESS. There's also T-PES.
P-test.
Correct.
I mean,
You're right.
yeah, T-PES.
T-PES.
Sometimes I call it P-TESS. It's T-PES, which is the principal's appraisal system. Every principal receives an appraisal, and
Yes, sir.
assistant principal receives an appraisal in regard to that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's Texas teacher evaluation system and
Support system.
support system and principal evaluation. Okay, great. Anybody have any comments or questions? Thank you for your report. You got to inspect what you expect. Okay. Now we have public participation. So, looks like I have 4 speakers tonight, and all of y'all have, about 5 minutes, or if you want to go less, that's fine too. But Dakota Bonner, you're up first. How you doing, Dakota?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. Doing great, man. Thank you.
Awesome. First, I would like to say good evening, everyone. My name is Dakota Bonner, and my father is Terry Bonner, if you don't know yet. Tonight, I'm here speaking on my father's behalf, and I'm also here on the behalf of the Justice League. I'm here on the behalf of the students of TISD, the parents of TISD, and the faculty and staff of TISD. The community is interested in seeing where we are on the transparency of the redistricting line. So we are still wanting and working towards an investigation of the discipline practices of TISD with the concentration of the District Alternative Education Campus, otherwise known as the DAEP. We also want to know the district's stance on critical race theory, also known as the CRT, and whether it will still be taught in the schools. We definitely demand an answer on the critical race theory and how it will affect the TISD. And we want to be transparent to the public and on how it will or will not affect the district. In closing, thank you all for listening to me and allowing me to speak today. And I would just, everybody, y'all just have a great night. Thank you all. And
Okay. Thank you, Dakota. Okay. Hard for me to read this one, so apologies. But I think it's Andy or Amy Trammell. Amy Trammell.
As long as it's nice.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm here to speak on behalf of TISD parent and business and concerned community member. So I want to read the statement that was given to me by Michelle. Greetings, members of the school board. I'm here to express my concern for the subject matter of the hiring of so-called educators and authority heads who are ordained to educate, lead, and care for our students during school hours of operation. Many of your leaders aren't meeting the criteria of satisfactory for the well-being of our student body. I believe that many of your recruits are world unfit to educate, lead, and care for the vast majority of students, particularly of ethnic backgrounds. It is in my unbiased opinion that the pressures of targeting predominantly to all oppressed students defines your hand-picked staffing hypocritical of the Code of Ethics. For a parent who has concerns for their ethnic children attending a school with facts of a Confederate history, it only gets worse when a parent gets numerous complaints of so-called educators and the authority heads over varied students. Our kids are left coming home to complain of an educator speaking inappropriately to students or around students in a racially motivated, untactful manner. As an African-American parent, when I address the complaint, I'm left with an investigation will be made. Members of the school board, the problem is still proliferating to this day. What's worse is witnessing the authority head over our students making the 10 o'clock news behind their uncontrollability of paraphernalia. This individual was always quick to press charges on students if they were caught with any type of paraphernalia found in their possession. Predominantly, the targets are of ethnic backgrounds. You have many so-called educational leaders within the school district who need restaffing as soon as possible. As a parent, I personally don't want my children under the care of substandard educators who don't see the real issue of concern of the mechanisms used to redirect our kids. As I look deeper into the TEA's code of ethics, a few of your leaders did or are not following these mandated standards. Administrative Code Title 19, Part 7, Chapter 247.1, subsection L, Standard 1.12. The educator shall refrain from the illegal use of abuse or distribution of controlled substances, prescription drugs, and toxic inhalants. J 1.10, the educator shall be of good moral character and be worthy to instruct or supervise the youth of the state. Section 3, ethical conduct towards students. Section H, Standard 3.8, the educator shall maintain appropriate professional educator-student relationships and boundaries based on a reasonably prudent educator standard. These codes of ethics are in the same handbook as you the board leaders, are to abide by, and for many of the educators, it does not seem to apply. This is not a surprise to many of the marginalized, discredited populace of people. Instead, kids are being thrown into an in-school prison which houses predominantly the black and brown race of students without proper redirection. I respectfully ask you to give the parents and the students the respect of your progress to redirecting your educators to staffing placements. Ethnic families are not getting acquired answers as we should. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Okay, we have Wilma Daniel up next.
Good evening.
Hi, Ms. Daniel.
Hi, my name is Wilma Daniel, and as you said earlier, I'd like to say happy belated Father's Day and also happy belated Juneteenth. I just stood tonight, I didn't come prepared to talk, but I had a question. I have grandchildren who attend Tyler High, and I have a question for you. What's the status of the cafeteria there?
Well, typically this time we can't comment and have a back and forth with,
Okay, that's
with
fine.
the public.
Then I'll tell you what
but
I know from
we're-
my students.
We're well on our way there.
Okay.
I can tell you that much.
I just was concerned as to what happened, that we built a nice new facility and had an inability to feed students and probably faculty that would have appreciated that. My granddaughter comes home many a days, and she got in line too late to get the hot steak fingers, so all she had to get was a burger. She doesn't like burgers. There was no pizza left. So I just don't think that that's something that we should have had our children go through. As a society and as a school district, we should have been better prepared than that. Some days on Monday, they feel privileged when they get what she calls a Chinese bowl that's actually something warm. Sometimes the food is cold. I don't know where it's being brought in from. They run out of drink sometimes, and usually they get cold cereal for breakfast lots of times. We try to eat breakfast at home, but still, sometimes you don't get to do that. Everybody's busy. So I was just concerned, but since we can't have a back and forth on it, I just hope that if we build another new nice facility for whatever reason, we won't forget that eating is a vital part of helping children learn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, and lastly, we have Daryl Davis. How you doing, Mr. Davis?
Good evening. How y'all doing?
Good evening.
Daryl L. Davis. I'm here on behalf of Equality and Justice for All, DLD, and the Daryl L. Davis Youth Foundation. How everybody doing?
All right.
I see you still looking good. We're here tonight to try to partner with the TISD school district on some issues. We're not here to bash it. We know we're in trouble. And it's not equal. But we want to do what we can to try to get it that way. My thing is that we would like a tutorial in one of those gyms over there that's not being used. They have one at Dogan. I think that would strengthen our kids' knowledge for us to read, and all those numbers that we was just showing, those were ridiculous. That looked like something I did when I was in high school. And it's terrible to where our kids can't compete. But I'm willing to take the time out to bring in some teachers that care about the students, that will work with them after hours to get them up to par to where they need to be as far as students that be able to compete. But we need a place to hold these after-school events. A lot of times kids have to catch the bus to go home. They don't have the transportation to come get them. But in the community, they always have a way back and forward. If y'all would consider that, giving us a building and provide a tutorial, or it would also teach kids discipline. I've been there, and I know what it's about. And to me, this is something that's very serious, and it's lacking in the TISD school district. Also, we're about to have our 4th annual back-to-school summer bash, where we've been blessed to give kids backpacks and school supplies and feed them and let them enjoy themselves before they go back to school for the summer. This year, we have provided for Net Health to come out to speak to them, and we also have some other public figures around town that will be able to come out to educate the kids before they go back to school. And this will give some kids an opportunity to set some goals that's on our side of town, right? And we all know it's divided, but that's something that we don't like to talk about. But by us talking about it, maybe we can get it out to where we can work together and be effective for this city and not be a mockery. I brought some letters tonight. One of them is to the TISD board, superintendent. The other one is to Dr. Crawford, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Newsom. I didn't know the rest of y'all like that to present y'all with these letters right here, but I'm willing to, if y'all willing to accept them and be able to help us out in our endeavor moving forward. I thank y'all for the opportunity to allow me to get up here. We all know it's a problem. I'm willing to be a part of the solution to fix the problem, if y'all will allow me to. Now, I don't know what to do with these letters. Give them to Mr. Jones. All right, thank y'all so much for this opportunity. And once again, my man right there, Wade.
Yes, sir.
Man, you had a powerful prayer there.
Thank you.
And if we go by what your words and your prayer, we'll be effective in fixing our city and our education. Thank y'all.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Okay, that's it for public participation. Moving on down the agenda, we'll approve some minutes from some previous meetings. Do I have a motion on the approval of minutes?
So moved. Approve the minutes.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Okay, now we have a public hearing on the ESSER 3 grant application. So first we have a presentation of the report by the staff, and then we'll have an opportunity for public comment on that specific item.
Mr. Bitter is going to provide that opportunity for the board, or for the public
All right.
to hear the results of the data we collected and the plans that we possibly could be having. Mr. Bitter?
Well, thank you, Dr. Crawford, members of the board. Back again to talk a little bit more about ESSER 3 and a little bit of the public input we received from our a survey that we put out to stakeholders. I'll give you a little bit of that information. First, just want to talk a little bit as part of the public hearing about what we're actually looking at here. So ESSER 3 funding, Tyler ISD's share is just shy of $45 million. At this time, it's a little bit less than $30 million is what is available to the district, and that's what we'll be applying for.
And before you go on, just in case somebody's out there that doesn't know what ESSER 3 is, and we do have a new trustee as well, just kind of give the backstory on ESSER.
You mean to take that?
Sure.
Elementary and secondary
Schools emergency relief.
Yeah.
School emergency release. Release. So ESSER 1 was what the government passed, kind of an economic stimulus back in the last part of 2020 that was funded to the states. The state of Texas was one of only 2 states, I believe, that actually used that to plug the budget deficit at the back end of the school year so that everyone would get paid. Everyone was furloughed for the most part, teaching at home, working from home. The Fed sent that down here. That was under different administration. ESSER 2 was actually being worked on at the time of the election, about that time, whenever you saw a change in administration and both houses of Congress. ESSER 2 was sent down the pike, but didn't have it had very loose restrictions about how you could use it. So the state of Texas did not deploy ESSER 2 funding. They're still holding on to it. Still not deployed, right, Tasha? Okay. ESSER 3, because you have a different leadership in the White House, you had different congressional, both houses of Congress, actually made the rules a little bit more restrictive about where the money flows. It does still flow through Austin, but there is very tight restrictions about whether or not a state can use it to plug budget gaps. And so we're dealing with ESSER 3 before we're able to deal with ESSER 2. Typical federal bureaucratic move, right? Or maybe even Austin. So in saying that, we're presenting on ESSER 3 tonight because you have to have a public hearing in regard to that, because those are the funds that will be accessible quicker than ESSER 2.
And the ARP is the American Recovery Plan, and so this is the public hearing that's required by statute. Those funds will expire September 30th of 2024. No promise that any of that funding will continue, and so that's part of the planning for those expenditures is with that understanding. That's correct. So our parent community stakeholder survey posted on the website, emailed out to all stakeholders. We have a link to that, some of that stuff in the paper, different things like that, publicized well. Available for about 2 weeks and got about 900 responses from different groups of stakeholders, parents, teachers, community members, a lot of people involved within our school system. And so some of that, I'll give you a chance to just look at a little bit of that breakdown right there. These are some of the areas that are approved for ESSER 3 funding, the ways that school districts can explore spending the ESSER 3 dollars. And so if you look at that, really what that says, increased staffing, 64%. So 64% of those that submitted a response indicated that increased staffing was a priority. And so that's kind of how you read that chart there. Technology resources and mental health services also really high on the priority list. But of those, a minimum of 20% of those who delivered a response indicated that whatever that category was a priority. So all of those seen as a priority to pretty legitimate pieces of our school system and groups of stakeholders. Okay. What's next? And you've seen a little bit of this information before, but just for purposes of public hearing, we will submit that application for the funds by July 1st so that we can access them for this school year. There will be some folks out there who don't do it on that timeline. I would assume that most will be on this one, but in order to access them for this school year and use them quickly, you have to do that by July 1st. We will post it on the website within 30 days of receiving our notice of grant award. And then also posted there, as you've heard before, will be our safe return to in-person instruction plan and what we plan on doing with the ESSER 3 funds.
So board, this is about the third or fourth time we've been up here in front of y'all presenting this. Is it 3?
It's at least 3. I know I've been up here at least 3 times. And
Okay.
We may have talked about it another time or two.
And we kind of got out over our skis the first time because we didn't know what the requirements were going to be in regard to the funding, the grant application,
Sure.
which is where you have this public hearing, the presentation, et cetera. So we've kind of been a vanguard in regard to getting the information to y'all and actually out there to the public about some of the strategies that we're wanting to do. Going back to the data that you saw tonight too, if you see some of the campuses to where we struggled the most, some of the reorg that we've had, some of the deployment of some of these resources that we've already been planning for are going to those specific areas. And as we've had data trickling in, we've kind of adjusted some of it. We're obviously not going to cluster any more schools into the J-Pro cluster because we think that those schools, regardless of COVID, those communities have had the highest risk loads in our school system. But if you saw some other schools that might have popped up on you that surprised you a little bit, we've deployed some additional resources, planned for deploying additional resources out of ESSER here to be able to help them, again, for the next 3 years. So need to warn the board or give you all a heads up, the community, that if these things don't extend, we will have to be very creative in our budget process and our staffing process in 3 years so we don't get in the same jam that we got into after the 2009 stimulus, 2011, to where we had a pretty heavy, it's not really heavy by administrative standards because on our first rating, our expenditures have always been rated very highly within first, but certainly we don't want to overinflate ourselves to where we cannot make an agile movement staffing-wise in 3 years when the funding runs out. Being good stewards of the local taxpayer dollars because this federal money won't be there forever. At least we don't think it will be. It'll be a nice surprise if it is. With more restrictions, I'm sure.
Yes, and more applications.
Yeah. More public hearings and presentations by you, Mr. Bitter.
Okay, I look forward to them.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Bitter? I did get the survey, took the survey, so I can say I did that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now there's a opportunity for public or board comments on that specific ESSER 3 grant applications. So, doesn't look like anybody from the public wants to comment. The board has had their opportunity, so we'll go ahead and move on. Okay, we'll move on to business, legal, finance, and consent agenda. I'm going to go ahead and pull item B to talk about separately, which we always do, gifts and donations. And do we need to take I out there too to name a delegate, or?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we'll take I out there to name a TASB delegate. Unless anybody else wants to pull any more items to talk about specifically, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on items A through J with the exception of B and I.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We'll go along to one of my favorite parts of every meeting that we have, and we're so blessed to have it pretty much every meeting, is gifts and donations.
Page 23 of your packet, you have donation. The source was from the Readathon.
Wow.
There on campus, conducted at Caldwell Arts Academy. Because they read so well and so much, $17,187.53 goes back into the school for the great things that are happening there. If you haven't been to see The Lion King yet, we had a production this last weekend, which was it was the elementary.
Mm-hmm.
And so the junior high production is actually during this week, then back into this week. So incredible performances there, because we have a philanthropic group of parents there that also support our kids, and the community supports our kids there. Encourage everyone to go see that. But those are the types of things that allow to go back into the only East Texas pure arts magnet that is a pure arts magnet in East Texas, there at Caldwell Arts Academy.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept and approve this money?
Motion to accept and approve $17,187.53 from the Readathon.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great take
All opposed? Okay, ayes have it, motion carries. So item I is consider approval for a delegate or and alternate for TASB convention. I do believe Mr. Martinez was jumping at the opportunity to be the delegate. for Tyler ISD. Is that a fair assessment?
I'll do it, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Jumping at the
Yeah.
opportunity. All right, and we need an alternate too, right?
Should be Trish or Yvonne since they're not here.
I think
All right.
another master trustee ought to be,
Okay, Trish will be the
I
alternate.
can't make a nomination, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on those two as our alternate.
I move that Aaron's our delegate and Trish is our alternate.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries as have it. Moving on to our curriculum instruction consent agenda. We have a number of items, A through P here. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on those items.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the items on the consent agenda, A through P.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, and motion carries.
Mr. Washman,
Yes,
just
sir.
a real quick comment on what y'all just approved on item M. Want to thank the late, great Stuart Bird for his input in regard to the support of our marching band programs, that those towers, we were going to do towers, but those were really his idea, Mr. Wade, in support of your program and making sure y'all had field time on the turf fields and actually convincing y'all that marching on the fields is okay as opposed to the parking lots. So I just wanted to make sure we said that. Former interim assistant superintendent here in Tyler ISD that passed away from us back here in January. Thank y'all for approving that.
And a good man. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our superintendents and staff reports. We have a quarterly investment report and a quarterly financial executive summary.
So Tasha Bjork has the microphone in front of her that she could provide some commentary in regard to this quarterly investment report and the financial executive summary. Tasha, how are our investments going? You start off with that as well. How's the economy treating us right now in regard to some of that?
Well, it's pretty sad.
It's also sad because we don't have quite as much in there from some of the things that you're allowed to do in regard to construction funds, right?
Right, we have
Okay.
around 140 million invested
Yeah.
right now. And we're getting 21 basis points, which is not horrible, but it's not great.
Right.
So it's not horrible for this market, but it's not great either. So that's it on the investments. It's really not changed much from last month. On the quarterly financial summary on page 71, this is just a comparison of this year to last year, and we're pretty much in line with where we stood last year. Again, on the general fund, the revenues are down a little bit from last year because the state's delaying getting us our money this year. They play waiting games, and they'll give us some in September so it doesn't hit this fiscal year. But they did delay that. Otherwise, food service is up, obviously, because we've been in school and the whole time, pretty much. And everything else is pretty much in line with where we should be right now.
It's
Any
interesting-
questions?
It's interesting that the state can do that financial tactic to delay a payment by one
makes
day,
no
but
sense.
if we were to ever do anything like that,
We can't do that.
That's
We
what I'm
have to
saying.
accrue salaries, and we have to accrue revenue from the state
That's
that
right.
we're due. But they can do that.
that's right. They can do a lot of different things every odd year from January to May.
I mean, they're getting ready to hit us with ESSER 2 and supplement or supplant
Yep.
2021, the year we're in now. So they're going to knock back our funding a little bit more, and then we'll have,
What about public participation when the legislature's in session? Do people get to come speak at the podium in the legislative session? At the
Sometimes.
podium on the floor? at the podium, on the floor.
Oh,
No. When they're about to take a vote on the floor, I don't think anybody's allowed on the floor. You can go talk to them in their office or maybe in a committee hearing. I'll tell you what, if you're on the floor, Mr. Davis, talking before a vote, I want to see it. Anyways, that's just my little jabbing at them. Okay.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Either of those, aside from what's already been said? Great. Okay. Our next item is a discussion item. It's Internal Audit Committee. And Reverend Hager was on Internal Audit Committee. He is no longer with us, so we have to find a replacement. We don't have two board members here tonight, and I would really like the opportunity to talk about this specific thing as a board. So is there any way that we can do this at our next meeting? Is there any problem with that?
So the audit charter probably has some timelines in there about when they meet quarterly. So Jan, you're back there. Can you wait for the whole board to get here to talk through that? Our next time together is a board workshop, a board meeting. July 17th or 19th, I can't remember what I told you. 19th, okay. July 19th. Okay, so instead of trying to do it in one day, like you normally do, a little meeting before the meeting, I guess the board can all be together in that July meeting, whether virtual or in person, and then they can actually appoint someone at that time.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
you could do a July meeting, separate of a board meeting, just a different day. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'd like that.
Okay.
It will give us a little time to talk about that and find the next audit committee member. And then we have TASB Update 117, local policies, CHCV and DEC, first reading.
It is a big update, but it is not a legislative update. So that big monster will be coming through. Well, they've got to do some of it before school starts. But there's also going to be a special session or two that's going to wind up giving a lot. So this next year is going to be full of this stuff, if not the next 2 years, as they try to play catch up. But with this update, please look over it. If you have any questions about specific policy, contact myself or contact Gina, and we can get you in touch with the correct person that we've identified as the point of contact, whose division that new policy is housed in. So.
Okay. Yep, just get familiar with it and reach out if you have any questions. And in future business, we have the Boshears graduation coming up and a regular meeting July 19th.
Very excited about the Boshears graduation. If you've never attended that, I encourage you to do that. At the same time, our staff, they're all in the room tonight. Make sure that you put that on your calendar. We did decide, Mr. Jones, today on summer grad. School is cool, and a board workshop that day, correct? Okay, so it was tentatively for August 5. If we can move it, we're going to try to move it. Okay. All right, we'll let y'all know whenever that date comes to us.
Okay, sounds like a plan. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I usually do that.
All right, is that a motion for adjournment,
Move to
Andy?
adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, thanks. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.
And that's